Annunciation of the Lord Parish. It's Wednesday, 8 o'clock, and it's time for the pastor's chat. So again, this is a time when I usually come online. I just I talk about a few things, what's kind of going on. It's a bit quiet actually right now. This is always every year it's like this. It's you get to the end of the summer, deep into August, and what takes place is everybody's gone on vacation, staff's gone on vacation, priests go on vacation. The chancery where I work part-time, it's what everybody's gone on vacation. And they're slowly coming back. And then this sort of, it's starting to return. But the Companions of the Cross, the religious order that I'm a part of, we always go away for sort of the last week of September, last week of August, first week of September, right around, just the week before Labor Day, actually. And like you leave and everything's kind of easy. Like it's like quiet and simple and no problem. And then by the time we come back, I feel like I'm behind, and I often don't really get caught up until deep into October, November, because it's just the pace picks up so quickly in the fall. Kids go back to school, regular meetings kind of come back online. It just seems there's a whole lot more activity happening. But anyway, that's not really what I want to talk about. So this is the last little kind of doldrum before we kind of get into the busyness of the fall. And what I was sort of thinking about was actually I'm preaching this weekend, and I was looking at the gospel. And it seems to tie into some of the themes that we've been talking about of late. It's that one where Jesus kind of asks a funny question of his disciples. He says, who do people say I am? Like, what's the crowd saying? Like, what's your opinion? What's going on here? It's almost like a modern version of a focus group. A focus group is where you poll people, like just before an election. What's the issue? Is it the economy? Is it foreign policy? Is it people are concerned? What's on the people's mind? And so it's part of it. So you try to get a handle on that, and then that's a good thing. But more of a marketing ploy, almost like what are people saying? And the answers that the disciples and apostles give are actually quite flattering. John the Baptist, who had been killed, but he'd risen again. This is a notion of the people. They didn't have the same kind of news service that we do, but almost like, did he really die? Or this is one of the great modern prophets. Or Elijah. It was Jeremiah, which again is one of the great Old Testament prophets, or one of the prophets of old, just kind of in general. And this is a very high compliment. The Israelites, they didn't have a great history with kings. King David was their shining example. Of course, Moses was sort of freed them from captivity. Abraham was the founder of the nation, but their whole history of the kings was pretty mixed. And so, a prophet of old is about this for them. Kings is more politics, like. Their faith was such a part of their lives that the prophets weren't just something they did. It was just who they were, and so that the most renowned people would be their spokespeople for God. So it's understandable. And then Jesus kind of flips it and says, "Okay, if that's what the people say, who do you say I am?" It's a very leading question, right? Like you've been with me for a while. You've seen what we've been doing. You've seen where things are going. What's your opinion? And this is Peter's moment to shine. Like he generally doesn't do that well, even up till post-resurrection. But you are the Christ. You're the anointed one. Christ being anointed. You're the Son of the living God. You're the Messiah we've been waiting for. I'm convicted of that. I don't know what it all means. I'm not sure where it's all going to go, but this is my conviction. And okay, all right. If that is true. If that's really what we believe, then what difference does it make? And that's just the first part of my homily. It's a saying, I thought I might even open with this on Sunday, but I'll share it with you now. It's a little provocative, I suppose, but it's something I heard in a podcast recently that it said that older people have a hard time with technology. Now, if you're watching me now, you seem to be doing just fine. I mean, it's a caricature. It's not an absolute. But it is true that it, I just remember my parents like trying to set the time on the coffee maker and the microwave and the VHS, and they just couldn't quite get, how do you do it on this one? Well, it's always the same. You hold down, hour, minute, and you kind of just do it. But that's something that one generation had a hard time when we switched into digital. And it just goes on from there, computers and printers and cell phones and things. But if older people have a hard time with technology, and that's not always the case, younger people have a hard time with reality. It's sort of notion of what can you reasonably expect from life, and do you get to change the world, and there are certain limitations, and that you actually have to work and work hard if you want to save, and they're kind of bit behind the eight ball. It's, the news about housing and things, that the cost of houses have become so expensive that people can't afford to live. So there's two sides to that, but you hear the saying that if older people have a harder time with technology, maybe younger people have a hard time sometimes with reality. And I think we as a culture, as a young culture, and that's what I would put, this new kind of post-Christendom, post-World War II, liberal democracy, early technology, not quite to the Star Trek episode kind of culture, is having a hard time with reality. That we can't just create an utopian future, that things aren't quite as good as we had hoped, that transcendence and beauty and redemption are still themes that you can try to banish religion or just ignore it. I don't know if it's really banished ever, or it's not yet. But these themes still come up, and they're still part of the reality. And to acknowledge Christ, to say that Jesus is Lord of my life, as Bob would say, Father Bob, give God permission. Well, what are we doing in that? Well, we're giving the Lord of the universe permission in our freedom to be a tangible part of our lives. This is the rock that we're going to build on. This is what the reaction that Christ has to Peter's proclamation. He says, well, you will be this rock, right? You're going to be the first pope. You're going to be the founder of my church. It is this belief and life-changing encounter with Christ. It's not just an opinion. It's not just a thought. It's not just happy, coincidence. It is the bedrock of our faith. If the covenant was sort of the foundation and bedrock of the Israelites, then for Christians it really kind of is this acknowledgement of Christ as the one. He is the one he said he is. He does the things he says he can do. And that kind of changes things. It kind of has to. And that's authentic faith. I think we've talked about this before, like the end of Christendom and what Christendom was. It's when the wider culture supported Christian belief. Okay, good. But it also created something called cultural Christianity, where because the wider culture was more supportive and it really didn't cost you a lot to go to church or to pray or to believe, it was easier to do so, and you could almost just kind of float along. I mean, if you were Irish or if you were French or if you were Italian, it's just kind of a given. Like, you baptize your kids, you make a big deal out of First Communion, you got, confirmation, you might be married in church. But did it really change your life? Is it something you would stake your life upon? And I'm not picking on any particular nationality. It's just that's the danger when the wider culture does support the faith, is it doesn't cost us anything to believe, and somehow in that it doesn't have the depth and the value that it could have. And we're entering into a time now, so this new apostolic age. At the end of Christendom, we have to reestablish kind of a deep faith that does cost us, and it will make a difference. And the practice of our faith will be transformative. It has to be, if it's going to penetrate this wider culture. Now we're starting to see that. It's interesting. Something Father John and I both were mentioning, that over this summer, it just sort of seems that people are finding us. Like, this is what I've been talking about. It's not that they're disillusioned with the church. That happened a long time ago, and often they've deconstructed their faith, or they've de-churched themselves, or however you want to word that. Coming out of that culture, they might have had an association, they might have been baptized in the faith, but just hadn't really been a part of their lives. But they're kind of searching again and coming back and saying, well, okay, does this really mean something? Now it's drips and drops, it's ones and twos, but nonetheless it's happening. And I think it's just, again, a first kind of wave, I hope, a first indication that it's a hard life. And when you try to live this utopian online whatever, I don't know what, you just put in your own version of that, trying to live in a beer commercial or whatever. You're just trying to live this happy life without consequence and without real direction. It gets old. At a certain point, it's just unsustainable. So then, what are you willing to try? And it just seems that some people are willing to try kind of more of a traditional belief in a creation of God, a redemption in Jesus Christ, and this vision or notion that there would be eternal life, and that I'm not the summation of my failures. I'm part of God's creation, and He's is working through this. This is what I was talking about today. That each day is sort of an opportunity to grow in that grace and to become a better version of who I am. And it's not a question of me becoming better than other people. It's being better than I was yesterday, and hopefully a little better tomorrow, and becoming the fullest version in God's grace that I could be in this world and entering into the next. Now, I know that all sounds so maybe simplistic or maybe pie in the sky, but that's life, right? That's the reality. I have failed as an individual, but I'm part of something greater, a church, an act of God, a part of creation, and through my relationship with my faith, my sacraments, and in our church, and in the person of Jesus Christ, I can grow in that. I don't have to sort of be limited to my mistakes. I can actually be part of something much, much greater. Now, this is significant because they're asking these questions, and making this declaration that yes, the Messiah is Jesus, and they do believe in that. And again, in the scriptures, that this is firmed up in Peter. Good, because we're about to head up to Jerusalem. We're about to head to hard times. This is sort of what's happening just before we head into the sacrifice, the Paschal mystery, where Christ suffers and dies and rises again. And it's to get the apostles through this. It's going to be a hard go, but that's the thing, right? All this teaching and time with them is to prepare them to come to a deeper understanding of who Christ really is, so that when they experience the Paschal mystery, they won't be shocked by it. I mean, it's still shocking, but it would not to the point of despair, and they would come back again and now live this out in an external way that the rest of us can really experience. And this is why we're here 2,000 years later. So that's just a thought for today. Now, it's kind of a rough cut kind of homily. Like, that's what I like to do is I like to read the Gospels early in the week and then just kind of brood over them and continue to think and to ponder. And we'll see how much of that, and it'll be interesting how much that actually makes it into the homily on the Sunday. But that's kind of where it's going, because I think that question, who do you say I am? Is followed by, who does the world say? Well, Jesus is a teacher, he's a healer, he's a social reformer, all kinds of stuff. But who do you say? Who do we say? Who do we who claim to still be followers of Christ? And we don't say that so much with our mouth or our lips. We say it with our lives, that we have encountered Christ. We have encountered a life-changing, loving Lord of who we are. And having done that now, we are in a position to share that with others. Yeah, thought for the day. So my good friends, God bless you all. Take care. Angelina, thank you for chiming in. I know there's a few more of you out there. You'll watch this probably at a later time. So just a thought as we head into these last days, of beautiful summer. The weather's been spectacular. But the good Lord continue to watch over us, guide us, and protect us. May the saints and angels intercede for us, and may Almighty God bless and keep us. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.